and so we settle in. You can feel your body beginning to grow heavy in the most pleasant way. In our time together tonight, there is nothing to examine, nothing to understand, only the gentle rhythm of a story. A story that begins not with the terror, but with the quiet before it, in a small, sleepy town in Tudor England, a place where the sun rises on what seems to be a perfectly normal day. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you are welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And if you feel so inclined, you can let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight, what time it is in your corner of the world. It's a quiet way of knowing we're all resting here together, in this shared space, even if we are miles and years apart. Alright, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing, and together, let's allow the story to begin. The first thing you're aware of is not a sound, but a change in the light. It's a weak, grey light, filtering through a window that isn't made of glass. Glass is a luxury for the impossibly wealthy. Your window is made of thin, greased linen, stretched taut in a wooden frame. It keeps out the worst of the wind and rain, but it turns the morning sun into this soft, milky glow. You lie still for a moment, under a rough wool blanket and a heavier linen sheet, feeling the cool air on your face. The mattress beneath you is stuffed with straw, and it rustles softly as you shift your weight. It's not uncomfortable. It's just what you've known your entire life. The faint, sweet smell of dried hay is the first scent of your day. You swing your legs out of the high-sided bed, your bare feet meeting the cold floor. Not wood, not stone, but hard-packed earth, covered with a layer of dried rushes. In the summer, you might mix in sweet-smelling herbs like lavender or chamomile to freshen the air. But now, in the cooler months, it's just the faint, earthy scent of the rushes themselves. You don't think of it as dirty or primitive. It's simply the floor. It's home. Silently, so as not to wake your husband sleeping soundly beside you. You put on your clothes. The first layer is always the same. A simple, long-sleeved linen shift. It's your underwear. Your nightgown. Your all-purpose layer of protection against the scratchy wools you'll wear on top. Over that goes the kirtler, a sturdy, dark green wool dress that laces up the front. The laces are leather, and your fingers find them easily in the dim light, putting them tight. Finally, a linen apron. Your day is a series of tasks that involve fire, water, dirt, and food. An apron isn't a choice, it's a necessity. Down the narrow, steep stairs you go. The house is small. Just this one room upstairs for sleeping and the main room downstairs for everything else. The heart of this room, end of your home, is the hearth. The fire from last night has died down to a bed of glowing embers. You carefully place a few pieces of kindling and some dried peat onto the embers, and gently blow, coaxing them back to life. A small, cheerful flame flickers, and you add a larger log. The smell of wood smoke begins to fill the room, a comforting, familiar perfume that will cling to your hair and clothes all day. You fill a cast iron pot with water from a wooden bucket and hang it on the hook over the fire. While it heats, you take the leftover pottage from last night's supper. It's a thick stew of oats, beans, and whatever vegetables you have from your small garden, onions, leeks, a bit of turnip. You add a little more water and some fresh herbs to thin it out for the morning meal. Historians, by the way, still get into surprisingly heated arguments about breakfast in your time. Was it a common meal for everyone, or just for those about to do a hard day's labor? The truth is likely that it varied, but for you, a warm bowl of pottage is the simple fuel that gets the day started. To go with it, you pour 2 mugs of small beer. It sounds odd to us now. Beer for breakfast. But the water from the local well can be unreliable. The brewing process, even for this very week, low alcohol beer, kills the dangerous germs. It's safer than water, and everyone, even the children, drinks it throughout the day. It's watery and slightly sweet. Nothing like the ale served in the tavern. You eat your breakfast standing by the growing warmth of the fire, looking out the open doorway. The sun is higher now, casting long shadows down the muddy lane. You can see the wattle-and daub walls of your neighbors' houses, the timber frames dark against the pale plaster. You hear the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer, the lowing of a cow, the crow of a rooster. It's a symphony of a world waking up. Your morning is a rhythm of simple, necessary chore. You scatter grain for the handful of chickens you keep. They're clucking a frantic, happy sound. You pull a few weeds from the cabbage patch in your garden. You sweep the rushes on the floor with a birch twig broom. It's all so normal, so predictable. You know every crack in the plaster of your house, every dip and rise in the lane outside. You know the face of every person you will see today. This small world is your entire universe, a place built on routine and reputation, a foundation you believe to be as solid as the earth beneath your feet. A perfectly ordinary morning, in a perfectly ordinary life. The pottage is finished, the mugs are empty, and the fire is now a steady, reassuring presence in the room. Your husband, a man of few words in the morning, gives a simple nod before grabbing his tools and heading out for the day's work. You are alone, but the quiet of the house is soon broken by a simple, domestic need. The water bucket is nearly empty. With a sigh, you grab the wooden yoke that rests by the door. It's a curved piece of wood designed to sit across your shoulders, with a notch at each end where the handles of 2 buckets can hang. It distributes the weight, turning an impossible load into merely a difficult one. You settle the yoke across your shoulders, hook the 2 empty wooden buckets, and step back out into the lane. The sun is a little higher now, the air a little warmer. The walk to the village well is short, a path you could trace in your sleep. It's the hub of the community, especially for the women, while the men might gather at the tavern or in the fields. The well is where the daily news is exchanged. It's the source of water, yes, but it's also the source of information, of connection, of gossip, a place of immense, unspoken power. As you approach, you see 2 other women already there, their heads bent close together in conversation. You recognize them immediately. Goody Miller, whose husband grinds the village's flour, and Goody Finch, the reaver's wife. You raise a hand in a silent greeting as you draw near, and that's when it happens. They see you, and the flow of their conversation cuts off, instantly. A sudden, sharp silence that is louder than any word they were just speaking. They straighten up, their faces suddenly becoming neutral, like masks. Goody Miller forces a tight smile. A fine morning, she says, her voice a little too bright. You nod, your own smile feeling stiff on your face. That it is. You don't ask what they were talking about. You don't have to. In a village this small, a sudden silence has only one meaning. The conversation was about someone who was not meant to overhear it, and as you wait your turn, fiddling with the rope on your bucket, you catch a final, carelessly whispered fragment from Goody Finch to her companion. Just 2 words, floating in the air before being snatched away by the breeze. Your name and the name of a man who is not your husband. A cold stone drops into your stomach. It's a physical sensation. A sudden, chilling weight. You pretend you heard nothing. You step up to the low stone wall of the well, unhook one of your buckets, and begin to lower it into the darkness. Your hands are steady on the rough wooden handle of the winch. Your movements measured, automatic. Turn, turn, turn. The rope creaks. You focus on the sound, on the feeling of the wood under your palm. You hear the distant, hollow splash as the bucket hits the water. Then you reverse the motion. Turn, turn, turn. The weight of the full bucket is real, grounding. It's a simple, physical task, a shield against the racing of your mind. The 2 women are gone by the time you filled your second bucket. They left with hurried goodbyes, not quite meeting your eyes. You settle the yoke back onto your shoulders. The full bucket's heavy now, pulling at your muscles. But the physical weight is nothing compared to the new burden you carry on the walk home. The lane that felt so familiar just minutes ago now feels different. The windows of the houses seem like eyes. The rustle of leaves sounds like whispers. Every shadow seems to hold a watching figure. Back inside your home, the familiar comfort is gone. The silence is no longer peaceful. It's heavy, accusatory. You stare at the wall you share with your nearest neighbor. It's made of wattle and daub, a lattice of woven branches packed with a mixture of wet soil, clay, sand, and straw. Sometimes, for extra binding, a bit of animal hair is thrown in. It's a fashionably simple building technique, but it's not known for its sound priming. This is the whispering wall. You've heard your neighbors argue. You've heard their baby cry in the night. You've heard them murmur their evening prayers. And you realize, with a fresh wave of cold dread, that they have heard you, too. Every conversation, every song you hum, every sound from your life has bled through that wall. Privacy is a concept that doesn't truly exist here. Historians, still debate the true nature of these female circles in villages like yours. Were they bastions of mutual support in a harsh and unforgiving world? A network for sharing childcare, remedies, and comfort? Or were they the primary enforcers of social norms? A sort of neighborhood watch with very sharp teeth, ready to turn on any woman who stepped even slightly out of line. The terrifying truth you're beginning to suspect is that they were both, all at once. The same hands that might help you deliver a child could just as easily be the ones to point an accusing finger. The seed of unease has been planted. It's a tiny, cold thing, but it's there, taking root in the fertile soil of fear. It wasn't an official accusation. It was just a whisper. But in your world, a whisper can be as powerful and as dangerous as a sword. You stand in the middle of the room. The filled water bucket's now resting on the floor. The chill from the well has not left you. It has seeped into your bones. The whispers weren't just about you. They were about him, too. The man whose name you do not share. Your name was erased the day you married, but whose legal protection is supposed to be your shield. And as you stand there, a far more profound and unsettling thought begins to form. What are you, really, in the eyes of the law? The answer is almost nothing. You are living under a legal principle. A doctrine so fundamental to your world that you've never even thought to question it. It's called overture, a soft-sounding word for a hard reality. It means that from the moment of your marriage, your legal identity, your very existence as an individual in the eyes of the state and the church, was absorbed into your husband's. A famous lawyer would one day write that the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during the marriage. Suspended, as if you are a story paused midway through. You are a semi-covert, a covered woman. You look around the small room. The sturdy wooden chest against the far wall, which held the linens and pewter spoons you brought into this marriage as your dowry. It is no longer yours. It is his. The small plot of land your father gave you, it is his to manage and profit from. The money you might earn from selling the eggs your chickens lay, or from spinning extra wool into yarn. It is legally his. You cannot sign a contract. You cannot incur debt without his approval. You cannot sue someone who has wronged you. He must do it on your behalf, as if you were his child or his property that had been damaged. In essence, you are a legal ghost with housekeeping duties. This is the central pillar of your society. It is seen not as oppressive, but as protective. He is responsible for your debts. He is responsible for your actions. He is your voice and your shield in the public and legal sphere. But, as the whispers from the well echo in your mind, you feel the chilling reverse of that protection. If your actions are his responsibility, then your shame is his shame. And if an accusation is made against you for a moral crime, a crime of the soul and the body, it is not just your reputation on the line. It is his. You are his property. and the whispers suggest that his property has become soiled. Here's a strange little detail of this law, a peculiar twist that shows how completely you are intertwined. You cannot be forced to testify against your husband in a court of law, nor he against you. The logic is simple, if a little dizzying. Since the two of you are considered one single person in the eyes of the law, forcing one to testify against the other would be like forcing a person to testify against themselves. A rather convenient legal loophole for him, and a complete dead end for you should you ever need to speak out. Now, historians still argue about how strictly this doctrine was applied in the day-to-day lives of ordinary people. Did wives in bustling towns, who helped run the family business while their husbands were away at sea, truly have no economic independence? Evidence suggests that in practice, many women acted as deputy husbands, making deals and running shops with a degree of informal authority. In some local courts, women did seem to speak for themselves, to defend their own honor without their husbands present. The law was the iron framework. But daily life, with all its messy necessities, often bent the bows. But you are not in a bustling port town. You are in a small village. And the crime you are being whispered about is not a financial one. It is a crime of morality. A sin that falls under the jurisdiction of the church courts. And in those courts, the old rules, the ideas of a woman as the weaker vessel, the daughter of Eve, the source of temptation, those ideas hold powerful sway. You run a hand over the rough wood of the table. You are not a person. You are a reputation. You are not an individual. You are a wife. And the whispers threaten to damage not just your standing, but the standing of the man who legally owns you. The question that now freezes you from the inside out is a terrifyingly simple one. Will your husband see you as a wife to be protected, or as a damaged piece of property to be discarded? The cold stone in your stomach grows heavier. The world you thought was solid is revealing itself to be a complex and treacherous machine of laws and customs you never truly understood, and you are just one very small, very vulnerable cog within it. You are covered, but you have never felt so exposed. The day crawls by in a haze of feigned normalcy. You knead bread with a ferocity you don't feel. The rhythmic push and pull of the dough a small outlet for the knot of anxiety in your chest. You mend a tear in your husband's shirt. Your stitches small and tight. A desperate attempt to impose order on a world that feels like it's unraveling. Every footstep in the lane outside makes you jump. Every voice you hear makes your breath catch. You are a prisoner in your own home, waiting for a sentence you haven't yet heard. Your husband returns as dusk settles, bringing the smell of sawdust and sweat into the small room. He is tired. He eats the fresh bread and the warm pottage in silence. You watch his face, searching for any sign that the whispers have reached him. Does he look at you differently? Is there a new hardness in his eyes, a tightness around his mouth, or is it just your fear, painting suspicion onto his wary features? He says nothing. You say nothing. The silence between you is a chasm. Later, as the fire dies down to embers once more, there is a knock at the door. It's not the casual rap of a neighbor dropping by. It's a hard, official sound. 3 solid thuds that seem to echo the frantic beating of your own heart. Your husband looks at you, a question in his eyes. You can only shake your head, your mouth suddenly too dry to speak. He rises and unlatches the heavy wooden door. Standing on your threshold, silhouetted against the deep blue of the twilight, is a man you recognize but do not know well. He is the parish apparitor. It's a formal-sounding title for a man with a deeply unpleasant job. He is the summoner, the messenger, the man who delivers the official bad news from the church court. He is, in essence, the walking embodiment of trouble. He holds a small, rolled-up piece of parchment in his hand. It seems impossibly frail, yet it carries the weight of an anvil. Master Smith, the apparitor asks, his voice flattened, devoid of emotion. His eyes flick past your husband to find you, standing by the fire. I am he. Your husband answers, his voice wary. I have a summons from the consistory court. The man says, holding out the parchment. For your wife. He uses the formal title. But his gaze on you is anything but respectful. It's a look of mild curiosity. The look a man gives a curiosity he's heard tales of. Your husband takes the parchment. He doesn't unroll it. He just holds it, staring at it, as if it might bite him. The apparitor does not leave. He lingers, a grim statue in the doorway, ensuring the message is not just delivered, but received. What is the charge? Your husband asks, his voice low and tight. Incontinence. The apparitor says, using the cold, clinical term for an act of intimacy outside the bounds of marriage. The word hangs in the air, ugly and sharp. With Thomas Fletcher. The name, the same name you heard whispered at the well. It is real now, spoken aloud. It has form and substance. The whispers have solidified into a formal accusation. Your husband's head whips around to look at you. The question in his eyes is no longer vague. It is a sharp, piercing point. It's a lie. You whisper, the words feeling thin and inadequate. It's gossip, idle tongues. He doesn't respond to you. He turns back to the apparitor. She will answer the summons. His voice is cold iron. He rolls the parchment back up, his knuckles white. He closes the door in the apparitor's face, the final thud of the latch sealing you inside with the accusation. Now, a strange little fact about these apparitors: they were almost universally loathed. People saw them as professional troublemakers, men who profited from the misery of others. They were paid for each summons they delivered, leading to accusations that they actively stirred up gossip and encouraged people to report their neighbors just to generate more business for the court and more fees for themselves. There are records of apparitors being insulted, chased, and even physically assaulted by angry villagers. They were the necessary, but deeply resented, gears in the machinery of moral justice. Your husband slowly unrolls the parchment and holds it near the dim light of a tallow candle. The script is formal, full of Latin phrases you don't understand, but the key words are clear enough. Your name, the date you must appear, the location, the local church, which will transform itself into a courtroom. Historians still debate the true motivations behind these accusations. Were they genuinely driven by a community's desire for moral purity? Or were they a convenient and powerful weapon in a society rife with personal grudges, property disputes, and neighborhood rivalries? An accusation of this nature could ruin a family, drive them from the village, and leave their land or business open for others to claim. It was the perfect tool for a personal vendetta, cloaked in the righteous language of piety. You look at your husband's rigid back, at the way he holds the summons as if it were a venomous snake. You are no longer just his wife. You are a threat to his name, his honor, his standing in the only world he has ever known. The unwelcome visitor has left, but he has left the poison of his message behind, and it is now spreading through the heart of your home, chilling everything it touches. The parchment lies on the table between you and your husband. It's a thin, fragile-looking thing, but it has completely sucked all the air out of the room. He hasn't spoken a word since he closed the door. He just stands there, staring down at the looping script. His jaw so tight, you can see the muscle flexing. You are trapped in a terrible silence, a silence that is heavier and more suffocating than any argument. You desperately want to speak, to defend yourself, to scream that it's all a misunderstanding. A cruel joke spun from a shared glance or a friendly word that was twisted into something ugly. But the words are stuck in your throat, choked by a sudden, paralyzing understanding of what this piece of paper truly represents. It is not just about you. In your world, a woman's honor is not her own private possession. It is the bedrock upon which her entire family's reputation is built. Your mind begins to race, not forward to the terrifying court date, but backward, through your family. You think of your father, a respectable man, a carpenter who has built half the new doors and window frames in this village. His name is tied to his craft, to honesty, to fair dealing. When people speak his name, they think of solid, well-made things. This accusation, this whisper of incontinence, will now cling to his name? 2. Will people hesitate to hire him? Will they look at his work and wonder about the moral failings of his daughter? As if a flawed character could be planed into the wood itself. You think of your mother, a woman known for her piety and her quiet dignity. Her place in the village is defined by her role as a good wife and a good mother. Your shame becomes her shame. Her friends, the very women who might have whispered at the well, will they now shun her? Will they look at her with pity, or worse, with a kind of smug satisfaction? You have not just failed your husband. You have, in the eyes of the community, failed your upbringing. You are a reflection of your parents, and you have just cast a dark and distorted image back at them. And then there is your brother. He is a young man, not yet married, trying to make his own way. A good marriage is essential for him. It's an alliance, a joining of two respectable families. What family will want to ally themselves with his now? Your name, your alleged crime, has become a stain on his marriage prospects, a black mark against his family's good standing. You are a liability, a walking, breathing obstacle to his future. This is the crushing weight of a name in your time. It's not just a label. It's a form of collective currency. Honor is a family's most valuable asset, accumulated over generations of good behavior, hard work, and conformity to social expectations. It is what allows you to trade on credit, to find good spouses for your children, to be treated with respect by your neighbors, and it is terrifyingly fragile. An accusation like this doesn't just question your actions. It devalues the entire family's worth in the eyes of the community. Here's a curious detail that underscores this idea of collective identity. In some parts of the country, if a family felt their name had been unjustly slandered, the entire family, uncles, cousins, in-laws, could bring a case for defamation to the church courts. They could argue that the insult against one was an injury to all. The honor was a shared resource, and they would defend it together. But this only worked if they truly believed the accusation was false. What happens when the accusation is so foul, so socially damaging, that the family itself begins to doubt? The debate among historians on this point is fascinating. Was the family the primary unit of support, a fortress that would rally around a member in trouble? Or was it the primary enforcer of its own reputation, willing to cut off a diseased member to save the rest of the body? The records are filled with examples of both. Families who spent their last shilling defending a daughter's honor, and families who threw that same daughter out into the street to prove to the world that they would not tolerate such shame. Your husband finally looks up from the parchment, and his eyes are cold. They are the eyes of a stranger. He is no longer just your husband. He is the guardian of the family name, and he is looking at you not as his wife, but as a potential threat to everything he holds dear. Is it true? He asks. His voice is quiet, but it cuts through the silence like a shard of glass. No, you say, your voice shaking. I swear it on my immortal soul. He watches you for a long moment, his face unreadable. He gives a slow, deliberate nod, but it is not a nod of belief. It is a nod of understanding. He understands the gravity of the situation. He understands the damage that has already been done, regardless of the truth. The whisper is out in the world, and now it has an official seal. He picks up the parchment, rolls it tightly, and tucks it into a small wooden box on the mantelpiece. He has put the accusation away, but you know it is not gone. It is just waiting. The door is latched. The accusation is boxed, and the house is plunged back into a silence that feels even heavier than before. Your husband moves to the hearth, banking the fire for the night. His movements economical and precise. He is shutting down the house, and he is shutting you out. He doesn't look at you, doesn't speak to you. You are an invisible presence, a ghost in your own home. When he finally climbs the narrow stairs to the sleeping loft, you remain below. The thought of lying beside him, of feeling the space between you crackle with unspoken suspicion and anger, is unbearable. You pull a small, three-legged stool closer to the dying embers of the fire. wrapping your arms around your knees. The house grows cold around you, but you barely notice. Your mind is a whirlwind, replaying every interaction, every conversation, every shared glance you've ever had with Thomas Fletcher. Who is he? Not a stranger. In a village this size, there are no strangers. He is the baker's eldest son, a man you have known since you were both children, running barefoot down these same muddy lanes. You picture his face. A friendly face, a face that has, perhaps, smiled at you a little too readily at the market. A face that has met your eyes for a fraction of a second too long across the pews in church. Were those smiles invitations? Were those glances promises? You search your memory, turning each innocent moment over and over, looking at it from a new, terrifying angle. The time he gave you an extra measure of flour, calling it a baker's dozen. Was that kindness, or something more? The time you stumbled on a loose stone in the lane and he reached out a hand to steady you. Was that simple courtesy, or forbidden touch? Your own mind becomes your accuser, twisting harmless memories into a narrative of guilt. This is the insidious nature of the proof required in the church courts for a crime like this. There are rarely witnesses to the act itself. The court relies on circumstantial evidence. They look for signs of undue familiarity, being seen talking together too often, sharing a drink at a village festival, giving or receiving small gifts. Any action that deviates from the rigid, unwritten rules of public conduct can be woven into a tapestry of suspicion. A single thread of gossip, pulled by a malicious hand, can unravel the entire fabric of your life. You stare into the glowing embers, the red and orange patterns shifting like monstrous faces in the dark. Sleep is an impossible dream. Your body is exhausted, but your mind refuses to rest. It is caught in a tortuous loop, a cycle of what-ifs. What if you had never spoken to him? What if you had turned your head away more quickly? What if you had never gone to the well that morning? You are tracing the path of your own destruction, trying to find the single misstep that lead you to this abyss. And the possibilities of what is to come are even more terrifying. What happens in that court? You've heard stories, of course, murmured tales of other women, other accusations. Some were forced to stand in the church porch, draped in a white sheet, holding a candle, and publicly confess their sin before the entire congregation during Sunday service. A penance designed for maximum humiliation. Others, accused of more serious or repeated offenses, face the ultimate social sanction you've only ever heard of in hushed, fearful tones. Recording. Here's a bizarre and little-known detail about the legal process you're facing. To be formally convicted of the actual act, the court technically required 2 eyewitnesses. Given the private nature of the alleged crime, this was an almost impossible standard of proof. But, and this is the cruelest twist, you could be found guilty of behaving in a way that caused a rumor. The crime, in essence, was not the act itself, but the creation of public scandal. You were being put on trial for what people thought you might have done. Your reputation, not your actions, was the thing being judged. This is a point historians continue to puzzle over. Was this legal framework a pragmatic way for church courts to maintain social order and public morality, even when they couldn't prove a specific crime? Or was it a deeply flawed system that essentially punished people for being the victims of gossip? A system that valued the appearance of order over the pursuit of actual truth. The night wears on, the last embers of the fire fade to black, leaving you in complete darkness. The cold of the packed earth floor seeps into your bones. You hear the floorboards creak overhead. Your husband, turning in his sleep. Is he dreaming? Is he, too, haunted by the whispers in the parchment? Or does he sleep the sound sleep of a man who has already judged you and found you guilty? You don't know. You know nothing anymore. You're alone in the dark, with nothing but your fear for company, a fear so profound it feels like a physical presence in the room with you. You are on the edge of a cliff, and the ground is crumbling beneath your feet, and you have the terrible feeling that you are about to fall. The day of the summons arrived not with a storm, but with a cold, indifferent drizzle. The sky is the color of slate, and the muddy lane outside has turned into a shallow, brown stream. It feels like the world itself is weeping for you. Or perhaps, you think with a bitter twist of irony, it's just washing itself clean of your presence. Your husband left at dawn without a word, taking his work and his silence with him, leaving you to face this alone. You dress in your plainest kirtler, a dull brown wool that feels like a shroud. You don't eat. The thought of food makes your stomach clench. Walking to the church is a trial in itself. You pull a thick wool cloak over your head, the hood hiding your face, but you can feel the eyes on you. Every curtain that twitches in a window, every figure that pauses in a doorway. You are a spectacle now. Your name, your alleged sin, has been picked apart and passed around every hearth in the village. You are no longer just a neighbor. You are a story, a cautionary tale. The church is the heart of the village, a stone fortress of faith that has stood for centuries. You have been inside it 1,000 times, for Sunday services, for weddings, for funerals. You were baptized at the stone font near the door. You were married before the high altar. It has always been a place of sanctuary, of ritual, of accompanying divine order, but today it is transformed. As you push open the heavy oak door, the familiar smell of old stone, damp wool, and melting wax is there. But the atmosphere is all wrong. The nave, usually filled with rows of simple wooden benches, has been rearranged. A long trestle table has been set up near the chancel steps, where the priest normally stands to deliver his sermon. Behind it sit 3 men. They are not priests in vestments, but soberly dressed men in dark robes. One is the chancellor of the diocese, a man with a sharp, bird-like face. The other 2 are local clergymen you recognize, their faces stern and impassive. This is not a house of God today. It is a consistory court. The space feels both vast and claustrophobic. The high, vaulted ceiling seems to press down on you, and the stained glass windows, which normally fill the church with jewels of colored light, seem dark and accusing on this overcast day. A few villagers are scattered on the benches at the back, their faces a mixture of piety and morbid curiosity. They are the audience. You spot Goody Miller and Goody Finch among them, their heads together, whispering. The source of the poison has come to watch its effect. You are directed to stand before the table. There is no chair for you. You are to remain on your feet, a supplicant before your judges. The chancellor shuffles some papers, his dry, rustling sound echoing in the cavernous space. He does not look at you. He addresses a point on the wall somewhere above your head. You are here, he begins, his voice thin and dreary, to answer a charge of incontinence, a grievous sin and a cause of public scandal, brought against you and one Thomas Fetcher. The formality of it is terrifying. The legal language is a cold, heavy armor you have no hope of piercing. You are a simple woman, and they are armed with Latin phrases and ecclesiastical law. It is not a fair fight. It was never meant to be. Here is a strange detail about these church courts. Their power was immense and touched every aspect of your life. They didn't just deal with moral failings like yours. They had jurisdiction over marriage disputes, the legitimacy of children, wills and testaments, and even cases of slander and defamation. If you failed to pay your tithe, the 10% of your produce owed to the church, they could prosecute you. They were a parallel legal system, ruling over the life of the soul with the same authority the royal courts had over the life of the body, and their punishments, while not involving physical harm from the state, were designed to destroy you in other ways, socially, spiritually, and financially. Historians often debate the effectiveness and fairness of these courts. Were they genuinely trying to guide their flock and maintain a moral community, acting as a sort of village-level counseling and arbitration service? Or had they become a tool for social control, a way for the local elite, the priests, the wealthy farmers, the gentry, to enforce their vision of order on the less powerful? The records show a bit of both. Sometimes, the court would order a feuding couple to sit down and reconcile. Other times, it would pursue a case with a relentless, terrifying zeal that had little to do with Christian mercy. The Chancellor clears his throat, finally lowering his gaze to meet yours. His eyes are small and grey, like chips of flint. How do you answer this charge? He asks. Your throat is dry. Your voice, when it comes out, is a small, frightened whisper. I am not guilty. He gives a faint, dismissive sniff, as if your answer is a predictable and tiresome formality. He picks up a piece of parchment. We shall say, he says, his voice devoid of any warmth. Let us hear the testimony. He looks towards the back of the church, to the benches where your neighbors are sitting, and with a slight nod of his head, he calls the first witness, and you watch in horror as Goody Miller, a woman who once helped you mend a broken fence, rises to her feet and walks towards the front of the church to speak against you. Goody Miller approaches the table, her footsteps echoing softly on the cold flagstones. She doesn't look at you. She keeps her eyes fixed on the three men in dark robes, as if they are the only people in the room. She gives a small, respectful curtsy before she begins to speak. Her voice, which you last heard in a tight, false whisper at the well, is now clear and steady, filled with a kind of self-righteous certainty. I have seen her, she begins, her voice ringing with feigned reluctance, in the company of Thomas Fletcher. Often, too often for a respectable married woman. The Chancellor leans forward, his bird-like face sharp with interest. Define often. 2, perhaps 3 times in the market last month, she says, as if she has been keeping a mental tally. They were talking by the baker's stall. Laughing, the word hangs in the air, suddenly transformed from an expression of simple joy into a piece of damning evidence. You remember the moment. You were buying a loaf of bread, and Thomas had told a silly joke about a runaway pig. You had laughed. The whole market had laughed. But now, filtered through the lens of suspicion, that shared, public moment is being presented as a secret, intimate exchange. And what was their manner? The Chancellor prods. Familiar, Goody Miller says, savoring the word. Too familiar. He looked at her and she looked back. It's so vague, so impossible to refute. How do you defend a look? How do you prove that a smile was merely polite and not an invitation? You want to scream, to tell them that this is madness, that she is twisting the mundane into the malicious. But you are silent. You have been commanded to be silent. Next, Goody Finch is cold. She walks to the front with a certain grim satisfaction on her face. She too avoids your gaze. I live next to her, she states, her voice sharp. The walls are thin. A cold dread snakes up your spine, the whispering wall. I have heard things, she continues, pausing for dramatic effect. Laughter from inside the house. When her good husband is away in the fields, a man's voice. I believe it was Thomas Fletcher's voice. This is a lie. A complete and utter fabrication. He has never been inside your home. But how can you prove it? It is her word against yours. And in this room, her word, the word of an accuser, seems to carry more weight than the word of the accused. She is respectable. You are questionable. One by one, a small parade of your neighbors is called to speak. A man who works in the fields claims he saw you walking near the woods where Thomas was known to set snares for rabbits. He doesn't mention that the path through the woods is the quickest route to the next village, a path everyone uses. Another woman says she saw Thomas give you a ribbon at the last village fair. She omits the fact that he was handing out ribbons to half the women in the village as part of the festive celebrations. Each testimony is a single, flimsy thread, a misplaced glance, a shared word, a moment of laughter. Alone, they are nothing, not here, in the cold, solemn atmosphere of the court. They are being woven together, thread by thread, into a net that is tightening around you. Your life is being reinterpreted by a chorus of accusers. Your every public action recast in the worst possible light. Here is a truly bizarre piece of legal machinery from your time. Compurgation. If you were accused of a crime like this, one way to defend yourself was to produce a number of oath helpers. These were respectable members of the community, usually 12 of them, who would come to court and swear on the Bible that they believed you were telling the truth. They weren't testifying about the facts of the case. They were testifying to your good character. It was, in essence, a popularity contest with your soul as the prize. If you could find enough people to vouch for you, the court might dismiss the case. But if you couldn't, it was seen as a sign of your guilt. Who, then, would dare to speak for you now, when so many are already speaking against you? The question of why neighbors would turn on each other with such relish is a subject of endless debate for historians. Was it simple envy, a personal dislike that finally found a socially acceptable outlet? Was it a way to gain favor with the church authorities? Or was it something deeper, a genuine, if misguided, fear that one person's sin could bring divine displeasure, like a failed harvest or a sickness, down upon the entire community? Punishing the sinner was a way of purifying the village, of setting things right with God. Your personal downfall was a public service. The final witness is an old man, someone you barely know. He shuffles to the front, leaning heavily on a stick. He claims that one evening, near dusk, he saw two figures, a man and a woman, near the old oak tree by the river. He couldn't see their faces clearly, he admits, but he is almost certain it was you and Thomas Fletcher. Almost certain. It is the final, rotten thread in the net. You look at the faces of the judges. They are nodding slowly, gravely. They are not listening for the truth. They are listening for a story that confirms the accusation. And your neighbors, out of malice, or fear, or a twisted sense of duty, have given them exactly the story they want to hear. The net is now complete, and you are caught within it. The last witness shuffles back to his seat, and a heavy silence descends upon the church once more. The air is thick with the weight of the testimonies, a collection of half-truths and outright lies that have now solidified into a formal record. The Chancellor looks at the papers before him, then at the other two clergymen. They exchange quiet murmurs, their heads bent together in a dark trinity of judgment. They do not ask for your side of the story. They do not ask you to refute the claims. The chorus of accusation is the only music they wish to hear. You stand there, your hands clenched at your sides, your knuckles white. A strange sense of detachment begins to wash over you. It's as if you are floating somewhere near the high, vaulted ceiling, looking down at the scene below. You see a woman, her face pale, her shoulders slumped, being judged by a group of men based on the whispers of her neighbors. It's a cruel, slow-moving play, and you are its unwilling star. The Chancellor clears his throat, a dry, rasping sound. He picks up a single sheet of parchment. This is it, the verdict. He does not look at you as he begins to read. His voice is a monotonous drone, stripping the words of all emotion, turning them into cold, hard stones of legal pronouncement. Having heard the testimony of divers and credible witnesses, he intones the word credible a fresh stab of injustice. This court finds that you and Thomas Fletcher have, by your lewd and familiar carriage, given rise to a grave and public scandal. Listen to the careful wording. He doesn't say the court finds you guilty of the act itself. The evidence, flimsy as it is, doesn't meet that impossibly high standard. Instead, the verdict is something far more slippery and insidious. You are found guilty of causing the scandal. You are being punished for the gossip. Your crime is not what you did, but what people now think of you. You have disrupted the good order of the parish. You have made people talk. In this world, that is a crime in itself. The good name of this parish has been sullied, the Chancellor continues, and the sanctity of the holy sacrament of marriage has been brought into disrepute. He places the parchment down and finally, for the first time since the proceedings began, he looks directly at you. His eyes are not filled with anger or malice. They are filled with a kind of weary administrative disapproval. You are a problem to be dealt with. a piece of moral paperwork to be filed for your penance, and as a caution to others who might be tempted to stray from the path of righteousness. This court sentences you to be carted through the parish on the next market day. Carted. The word lands in the silent church with the force of a physical blow. A collective gasp, a rustle of movement, comes from the benches at the back. It is the harshest sentence the court can give for this offense. It is a sentence of total, irretrievable social annihilation. Public confession in a white sheet was humiliation. This is destruction. Thomas Fletcher, the Chancellor, adds, almost as an afterthought, is sentenced to a public whipping at the market cross on the same day. It's a brutal punishment, to be sure, but it is one that will be over in a matter of minutes. The pain will be sharp, his back will be scarred, but his shame will be, in a strange way, finite. He will pay his price in blood and then, perhaps, be allowed to rejoin the community. Your punishment is different. It is not about pain. It is about shame. A shame that is designed to be slow, drawn out, and permanent. Here's a peculiar and often overlooked aspect of the justice system of your time: the concept of gendered punishments. For similar moral transgressions, men and women were often punished in starkly different ways. Men's punishments were frequently corporal and swift. The stocks, the whipping post, they were painful and public, but they were about the body. Women's punishments, on the other hand, were often focused on social humiliation, the ducking stool for a scold, the public penance, the carting. They were designed to attack a woman's reputation, her honor, which was seen as her most valuable and most fragile attribute. A man could recover from a whipping. It was much harder for a woman to recover from being branded publicly as shameful. Historians continue to debate the reasoning behind this. Was it rooted in the idea of women as the weaker vessel, more susceptible to moral failings and therefore in need of more powerful social deterrent? Or was it a reflection of a society where a woman's value was almost entirely tied to her reputation for chastity and obedience, making the destruction of that reputation the most effective punishment imaginable? The Chancellor makes a dismissive gesture with his hand. The court is concluded. The verdict has been read. The judgment is passed. There is no appeal. There is no hope of a reprieve. The men behind the table begin to gather their papers, their work for the day done. The spectators at the back of the church begin to stand. Their hushed whispers now a low, excited buzz. They are no longer just witnesses. They are the first messengers, rushing out into the village to spread the news of your sentence. You don't move. You can't. Your feet feel as if they have been nailed to the stone floor. The world has tilted on its axis, and you are lost in a landscape of utter despair. You are no longer a wife, a daughter, a neighbor. You are a condemned woman. You don't remember walking home from the church. It's a blur of grey drizzle and diverted eyes. The path you took is a blank space in your memory, erased by the shock that has settled deep into your marrow. A cold and numbing fog. One moment you are standing on the cold flagstones of the court. The next you are standing on the packed earth floor of your own home. The door is closed behind you, shutting out the world that has just condemned you, but the sentence is inside with you. It fills the small room, suffocating you. For a long time, you do nothing. You just stand in the center of the room, your wet cloak dripping a small, dark puddle onto the rushes at your feet. The familiar objects of your life, the spinning wheel in the corner, the row of pewter spoons on the shelf, the heavy iron pot by the hearth, all seem alien, as if they belonged to someone else. This was the stage of your life, and the play has been cancelled. The preparations for the punishment do not begin with a loud noise or a sudden violence. They begin with a quiet, methodical stripping away. Late in the afternoon, 2 women from the parish arrive at your door. They are not the gossips from the well. These are older women, widows, their faces set in grim, dutiful lines. They are the unofficial administrators of female shame. They do not speak to you. They do not need to. You know why they are here. They lead you to the stool by the hearth and begin. The first thing they take is your coif, the linen cap that covers your hair. For a married woman, to be seen in public without her head covered is an act of profound immodesty. It is a symbol of your marital status, your respectability. They untie the ribbons beneath your chin, and with a single, deliberate motion, they pull it off. Your hair, penned up for the day, tumbles down around your shoulders. The feeling of the cool air on your scalp, a sensation you have not felt outdoors since you were a young girl, is shocking, deeply unsettling. It is the first layer of your identity being peeled away. Next, they unlace your kirtler, the sturdy wool dress that is your daily armor. Their fingers are rough and efficient. They pull the dress over your head, leaving you standing in nothing but your linen shift. The shift is thin, almost translucent in the dim light of the room. It clings to your body, offering no real protection from the cold or from their assessing eyes. You feel a wave of deep, primal shame. You have not been this undressed in front of anyone but your husband since you were a child being bathed by your mother. They are not just removing your clothes, they are removing your status. The wool kirtler marks you as a woman of a certain standing, a respectable wife. The plain linen shift reduces you to something elemental, anonymous. It is the garment of a penitent, the uniform of the shamed. Then comes the most symbolic act of all. One of the women holds up a pair of iron shears, the kind used for shearing sheep. They are large and rusty, and they make a menacing snipping sound in the quiet room. You flinch, a gasp escaping your lips. But the other woman holds your shoulders firm. They are going to cut your hair. In your time, a woman's hair is her glory. As the Bible says, it is a symbol of her femininity, her vitality. Long. Well-kept hair is a sign of health and pride. To have it shorn is an act of profound degradation. It is what is done to those accused of the most serious moral crimes. It is a visual branding, a way of marking you as an outcast. The cold metal of the shears touches your neck, and you squeeze your eyes shut. The sound is brutal. They rough, sawing crunch as the shears chew through the thick tresses of your hair. You feel the sudden lightness as a heavy lock falls away, landing softly on the floor. Snip, crunch, another falls. They are not gentle. They are not trying to be neat. They are hacking it away, leaving it jagged and uneven, a parody of a haircut. It is an act of deliberate ugliness, designed to make you an object of ridicule. Here's a fascinating, grim detail about this practice. The cutting of hair as a form of public punishment is an ancient tradition, stretching back centuries before your time. It was a way of visually signifying that a person had transgressed a serious social boundary. But, in your era, it carried a particularly potent, gendered meaning. It was a symbolic desexing, a removal of one of the key markers of female desirability. A shorn woman was a woman made monstrous, unappealing. Historians debate whether this act was purely about punishment or if it also contained a bizarre, twisted element of protection. Was the idea, at some deep level, to make the woman so unattractive that she would no longer be a source of temptation to the men of the community? It's a disturbing thought. A punishment that frames the victim as the source of the problem and attempts to solve it by mutilating her. When they are finished, the floor around your stool is littered with the soft, dark piles of what was once your hair. Your head feels strangely light, exposed. You don't dare to touch it, to feel the ragged, unfamiliar edges. The women stand back. Their work done. They have transformed you. You are no longer the woman who woke up in this house yesterday. You are something new, something lesser. You are a public spectacle in the making, and they have just finished preparing you for the stage. The two women leave as silently as they arrive, closing the door behind them, leaving you in the wreckage of your own identity. You sit on the stool, the shorn locks of your hair lying on the floor around you like fallen leaves. You are cold, so cold, in just your thin linen shift. But it's a cold that comes from deep within, a chilling of the soul that has nothing to do with the temperature of the room. You have been unmade. You don't know how long you sit there, Time seems to have lost its meaning. The grey light from the greased linen window fades to the deep, inky black of a moonless night. You don't light a candle. You prefer the darkness. It feels like a cloak, a temporary shield from the reality of what you have become. You hear your husband return, the heavy thud of the latch, the soft rustle as he moves through the room. He sees you. You know he does. You can feel his presence. A dark shape in the darkness. He says nothing. Not a word of comfort. Not a word of anger. Just a profound, damning silence. He climbs the stairs to the sleeping loft, leaving you alone with your shame. Sleep does not come. You eventually lie down on the rush-covered floor near the cold hearth, curling into a tight ball, as if to make yourself smaller, to disappear entirely. But every time you close your eyes, you see the shears. You hear the crunch of your hair being cut. You feel the cold eyes of the judges. The morning of the market day dawns with a cruel, brilliant clarity. The rain has passed. Under wheat, watery sun is shining, glinting off the puddles in the lane. It's the kind of day that should be cheerful. A day for trading on gossip and catching up with neighbors. For you, it is the day of your destruction. You are not allowed to dress. You must remain in the thin linen shift. One of the widows from yesterday returns. Her face is impassive as stone. She carries a small wooden bowl containing a thick, greyish paste. It's a mixture of soot and animal fat. Without a word, she begins to daub it on your face. Your arms, your legs. It is cold and greasy, and it smells rancid. This is another layer of the humiliation, designed to make you appear dirty, grotesque, less than human. Then, you hear it. A sound from outside that makes the breath catch in your throat. It's the rumble of wooden wheels on the muddy track, the creak of an ungraced axle, and a low murmur of voices that is steadily growing louder. The cart has arrived. The widow opens your door, and you see it for the first time. It's not a farmer's wagon, built for carrying hay or produce. It is a crude, ugly thing, more like a large, two-wheeled box on an axle. It's the sort of cart used for hauling dung or rubble. The wood is rough-hewn, splintered and stained. There is no seat, no place for comfort. It is a stage, and a cage, all in one. Yoked to the front is a tired-looking old horse, its head hanging low. Holding the reins is the parish beadle, a minor official whose job it is to keep order and administer public punishments. His face is bored, as if this is just another tiresome chore. A crowd has already started to gather. Not a huge crowd, not yet, but a significant one. Men, women, and even some children. Their faces a mixture of excitement and grim curiosity. They are silent for now, watching, waiting for the show to begin. This vehicle, the cult of shame, has a long and sordid history. Its use as a tool for public humiliation was not an invention of your time. Variants of it existed for centuries. But it was in this period that it became specifically unfamously associated with punishing women for so-called moral crimes. To be carted was a phrase that everyone understood. It meant you had been judged, found wanting, and were about to be paraded through the streets for public scorn. Here's a fact that highlights the strange, ritualistic nature of this punishment. In some towns, the direction the person was made to face in the cart was significant. If you were forced to sit facing the horse's tail, it was a sign of a more severe transgression. It was a symbol of the world turned upside down, a visual metaphor for your own disordered, immoral life. It was a piece of street theatre, with every detail carefully calibrated for maximum symbolic impact. Historians still debate the true purpose of this ritual. Was it simply about deterrence, a horrifying spectacle designed to frighten others into conformity, or was it a form of communal catharsis, a way for the village to collectively expel its own anxieties about sin and disorder by projecting them onto a single scapegoat? By mocking and reviling you, the crowd reaffirms its own righteousness. Your degradation becomes the measure of their virtue. The beadle gestures impatiently with his thumb. It's time. The widow takes your arm in a firm grip and propels you forward, out of the darkness of your home and into the pale, watery sunlight. You take the first step across your own threshold, and the waiting begins. That first step across the threshold is the hardest you have ever taken. The sunlight feels sharp, accusatory. The air, which should be fresh after the rain, feels thick and heavy, hard to draw into your lungs. You stumble, your bare feet sinking into the cold, soft mud of the lane. The widow's grip on your arm is like an iron band, holding you up, forcing you forward. The crowd is a wall of faces, faces you have known your entire life. There's the blacksmith, his powerful arms crossed over his leather apron, his expression unreadable. There's the baker, Thomas Fletcher's father, his face a mask of shame and anger, directed not at you, but at the ground. You see women you once shared bread with, men you've passed the time of day with 1,000 times. None of them meet your eyes. Not yet. They are watching you. The strange, shorn, dirt-smeared creature that was once their neighbor, with a kind of detached, clinical curiosity. You are laid to the back of the cart. The beetle, with a sigh of impatience, lowers the backboard, a single plank of wood that serves as a crude ramp. The widow gives you a rough shove, and you clamber in, your knees scraping against the splintered wood. The floor of the cart is filthy, littered with old straw and something that smells foul and acrid. You stumble, catching yourself on the high, rough-hewn side. The beetle slams the backboard up and secures it with a heavy wooden peg. The sound is loud, final, a cage door closing. You are trapped, exposed on all sides, a specimen in a jar. You press yourself into a corner, trying to make yourself as small as possible. But there is nowhere to hide. You are the sole focus of every eye. You wrap your arms around your shivering body. The thin linen shift provides no warmth, and a damp, chilling breeze cuts through it. But the cold you feel is deeper than the wind. It is the cold of absolute isolation. You are in the middle of your own village, surrounded by people you know, and you have never felt so completely, terrifyingly alone. You risk a glance back at your house, the place that was your entire world just days ago. The door is closed. You wonder if your husband is inside, watching through a crack in the shutter, or if he has fled, unable to bear witness to this final, public confirmation of his shame. Either way, the message is the same. That door is no longer open to you. That life is over. A fascinating, and often overlooked, detail of these public punishments is the legal and social significance of the threshold of the hole. A person's house was their castle, their private domain, for the authorities to drag you out of it. To literally pull you from your private space and into the public street for punishment was a hugely symbolic act. It was a declaration that your crime was so offensive to the community that you had forfeited your right to the protection and privacy of your own home. You no longer belong to the domestic, private world. You now belong to the street, to the mob. The debate among social historians about the role of the crowd in these rituals is intense. Were they an unwilling audience, forced by the authorities to participate in a spectacle they found distasteful? Or were they enthusiastic participants, seizing the opportunity to enforce community norms and enjoy a bit of cruel entertainment? The answer, most likely, is that it was a complex and messy mixture of both. Some were there out of a sense of duty, some out of morbid curiosity, some out of genuine anger, and some, perhaps, just because it was a break from the monotony of their daily lives. The beetle gives the reins a sharp snap. The old horse, with a weary groan, leans into its harness. The cart lurches forward with a violent jolt that sends you stumbling against the side. The wheels begin their slow, agonizing turn, grinding in the thick mud. The procession has begun, and as the cart starts to move, the silence of the crowd finally breaks. A single, high-pitched jeer cuts through the air. It is followed by another, then another. The dam of polite restraint is broken. The show has started, and the audience is ready to play its part. Your journey into the heart of your own personal hell has begun. The first sound is a woman's voice, high and shrill, from somewhere in the crowd. Shameless harlot. The words are like a stone thrown, striking you with physical force. Another voice, a man's gruff shout, follows immediately. Look at her, no better than an animal. Then another, and another, a rising tide of insults that washes over you, each one a fresh wave of agony. This is just the beginning. As the cart creeps forward, the verbal assault gives way to something else, something ancient and primal. It starts with a single, rhythmic clanging sound. A woman at the front of the crowd is holding a small iron pot and a large wooden spoon, binding them together with a steady, relentless beat. Clang, clang, clang. Another person takes it up. Then a third, using a metal ladle against a frying pan. Soon, the air is filled with a deafening, discordant rhythm. It's a cacophony of judgment, a kitchen orchestra playing a symphony of your disgrace. This practice is known as rough music. It's a form of traditional, communal punishment, a folk justice that exists outside the formal legal system. It's a way for the community to express its disapproval of someone who has violated its unwritten rules. The noise is deliberately harsh and ugly, designed to mimic the ugliness of the supposed crime. It's a sonic shaming, a way of surrounding the offender with chaos and scorn, driving out all possibility of peace or quiet reflection. It's an auditory wall, cutting you off from the normal, everyday sounds of your world. You press your hands over your ears, but it's useless. The noise is too loud, too pervasive. It seems to vibrate in your bones and your teeth. It's the soundtrack to your nightmare, mixed in with the clanging of pots and pans or other sounds. The high-pitched whistle of people blowing through their fingers, the low, guttural bowing of the men, the cruel, mocking laughter of the children, who have been caught up in the frenzy without fully understanding it. You risk a look at the faces in the crowd. They are transformed. The familiar, placid faces of your neighbors have become twisted into masks of glee and righteous fury. Their eyes are wide, their mouths open, shouting words you can no longer distinguish in the overwhelming noise. They are a mob, a single entity, driven by a shared, intoxicating purpose. They have shed their individual identities and become something else. Something ancient and terrifying. Here is a strange and chilling detail about rough music. Its targets were not always women accused of infidelity. The same ritual could be used against a husband who was known to beat his wife, or a baker who gave short weight, or a young couple who married too hastily after the woman was already with child. It was a flexible to love social control. However, its most common and most ferocious application was reserved for those who disrupted the patriarchal order of marriage, a cheating wife, or a cuckolded husband who didn't properly control his household, were the most frequent targets. The academic debate on the nature of the mob is a cornerstone of social history. Were these crowds genuinely expressing the unified will of the community? Or were they often manipulated by a few influential ringleaders, with many participants simply swept along by the powerful emotional current of the moment? Evidence suggests that many people in the crowd might have felt personal sympathy for the victim, but the fear of being seen as soft on sin, the fear of standing out from the group, was a powerful force for conformity. To not join in the jeering was to risk becoming the next target. You huddle in the corner of the cart, your body trembling uncontrollably. The noise is an overwhelming physical presence. It feels like it's trying to break you apart, to shatter your sense of self. It is the sound of your world ending, not with a quiet whisper, as it began, but with a brutal, deafening roar. Every clang of a pot, every shouted insult, is another nail being hammered into the coffin of your old life. You are no longer a person. You are just the object of their scorn, the silent center of their chaotic, hateful storm. The cart moves at the pace of a funeral procession, slower. Even, the beetle is in no hurry. The horse plods along, its hooves making thick, sucking sounds in the mud. The slowness is deliberate. It is part of the punishment. This is not about getting from one place to another. It is about the journey itself. It is about maximizing your exposure, prolonging your agony, ensuring that every single resident of the village has the opportunity to see you, to judge you, to participate in your degradation. You are being paraded through the very streets that have formed the map of your entire life. You pass the small cottage of the midwife who delivered you. You pass the patch of green where you played as a child. You pass the corner where you first spoke to your husband, a stilted, awkward conversation that now seems like a scene from a different life, a story about someone else. Every landmark is a fresh torment, a reminder of a past that has been irrevocably poisoned. The streets are narrow, hemmed in by the timber-framed houses that lean out over the lane. This forces the crowd to press in close. They walk alongside the cart, just an arm's length away. You can see the details of their faces, the spittle that flies from their mouths as they shout, the missing teeth and a gaping, jeering smile. You can smell them, the sweat, the sour ale on their breath, the damp wool of their clothes. The claustrophobia is suffocating. There is no escape, no distance. Their scorn is a physical presence, pressing in on you from all sides. You try to find a single point to focus on, something to anchor your reeling senses. You fix your gaze on the rough, splintered floor of the cart. You study the patterns in the wood grain, the dark stains, the stray pieces of straw. You try to make it your entire world, a tiny, neutral space where the hatred cannot reach you. But then a clod of mud, thrown from the crowd, splatters against the boards just inches from your face, and the illusion is shattered. Your tiny sanctuary is breached. You are a target, and there is no safe place to look. You feel a profound sense of dislocation. Your body is here, in this cart, cold and trembling, but your mind feels like it's somewhere else, watching this happen from a great distance. Is this real? Can this truly be happening? The ordinariness of the setting is what makes it so surreal. The familiar thatched roofs, the smoke curling from the chimneys, the chickens scattering out of the path of the procession. It's all so normal. A perfectly normal market day, with one horrifying exception. Here's a curious aspect of the legal and social framework of your time. While the church court ordered the punishment, the actual carrying out of it was a strange collaboration between the official authorities like the beadle and the unofficial power of the community, the mob. The beadle provides the cart and the legal sanction, but the crowd provides the noise, the filth, the raw, visceral energy of the humiliation. It's a public-private partnership in the business of shame. Historians often ponder the psychological effect of this slow, deliberate pace. Was the goal simply to prolong the suffering? Or was there a more complex, ritualistic purpose? Some argue that the slow parade was a kind of social pilgrimage in reverse. A traditional pilgrimage was a journey towards a sacred center to gain grace. This was a journey through the heart of the community to be stripped of all grace, to be ritually cleansed from the social body. You are being walked through your life, step by painful step, so that it can be publicly erased. You pass the village tavern, the door is open, and a group of men stand outside, mugs of ale in their hands. They are laughing, not the cruel, jeering laughter of the rest of the mob, but a kind of detached, amused laughter. For them, this is entertainment, a welcome diversion, a bit of live theatre on a dull morning. Their amusement is, in some ways, more chilling than the outright hatred. The hatred at least acknowledges you as a threat, a sinner. The laughter reduces you to a joke, an object of ridicule, utterly insignificant. The cart will hit a large stone, and the jolt sends a sharp pain through your body. But it's a distant pain, a minor signal from a body that feels like it no longer belongs to you. The true pain is in the slowness, the relentless, grinding pace of your own unmaking, paid out for all to see on the familiar stage of your home. The shouting and the noise are a constant, rolling wave, but then the nature of the assault changes. It begins with something soft, like cabbage leaf, wilted and brown at the edges, arcs through the air and lands with a soft, wet slap against your shoulder. It leaves a smear of dirt on your thin linen shift. For a moment, it's almost comical, this absurd vegetable attack. But it's just the first drop of a coming storm. A handful of something wet and gritty hits your cheek. Mud. Someone has scooped a handful from the thick, viscous mire of the lane and flung it at you. It's cold and slimy, and a piece of it gets in your hair. Derided, shorn mess that offers no protection. You try to wipe it away, but your hands are shaking too badly, and you only succeed in smearing it across your face. The crowd sees this small victory, and it emboldens them. The air is suddenly full of flying objects, rotten fruit, salvaged from the compost heaps behind their houses. A half-eaten turnip, surprisingly hard, glances off the side of the cart near your head, eggshells, discarded from the morning's meal. The soft, decomposing bodies of vegetables that were not fit for their own tables are now considered the perfect ammunition to throw at you. You curl into a tighter ball in the corner of the cart, pulling your knees to your chest and burying your face in your arms, trying to shield yourself, but you can't. The cart is an open stage, and you are the only actor. Something wet and foul-smelling splatters across your back. Animal dung. Someone has brought a bucket of it from their stable or pigsty. A wave of nausea rises in your throat. The smell is overpowering. A stench of decay and filth that seems to cling to the inside of your nose. Your mouth. You are no longer just an object of scorn. You are a receptacle for the villagers' refuse. Every piece of rotten food, every clod of dirt, every handful of waste that is thrown at you is a symbolic act. The crowd is physically transferring their disgust onto you. They are cleansing their own community by marking you with its filth. You are becoming the embodiment of garbage, of waste, of everything that must be cast out. This practice of throwing filth is a deeply ingrained part of public punishment rituals. It's a way for the crowd to move from being passive spectators to active participants. It's not just the authorities punishing you now, it's everyone. Every person who throws something feels a sense of participation, a sense of ownership over your humiliation. They are not just watching justice be done, they are doing it with their own hands. Here's a rather disgusting, but historically documented, little detail. In some recorded instances of punishments like this, it wasn't just refuse that was thrown. Barbers and butchers would sometimes empty basins of blood and other waste products from their work into the street for the crowd to use. The goal was to create the most visceral, repulsive, and multi-sensory experience of degradation imaginable. It wasn't enough for you to be seen as shameful. You had to look, feel, and smell shameful, too. The question of what this says about the society itself is one that historians grapple with constantly. Was this a sign of a brutal, unfeeling people, or was it a highly ritualized, almost theatrical, way of dealing with social transgressions in a world that lacked a formal police force and prison system? Some argue that these rituals, as horrific as they seem to us, served a vital function. They were a pressure valve, allowing the community to vent its collective anxieties and anger in a controlled, if cruel, manner. Your destruction was a form of social sanitation. A rotten apple, soft and mushy, strikes you squarely in the back of the head. The impact is dull, but the shock of it makes you cry out, a small, involuntary whimper that is instantly swallowed by the roar of the crowd. Their laughter redoubles. Your small sign of pain is a reward. Proof that their missiles are hitting their mark, that their cruelty is having its intended effect. You stop trying to shield yourself. What's the point? You are a canvas, and they are painting you with their contempt. The thin white of your shift is now a mess of brown mud, green vegetable slime, and darker, fouler stains. Your hair is matted with filth. Your skin is sticky with it. You are disappearing under a layer of other people's garbage, buried alive in the refuse of your own community. The cart creaks to a halt. The sudden cessation of movement is almost as jarring as the journey itself. You cautiously lift your head from your arms, peering through the matted, filthy strands of your hair. You are at a crossroads, the place where the main lane of the village intersects with the path leading to the church. It's one of the most public spaces in your small world. A natural gathering point. The beadle has stopped the horse here for a reason. This is the first station in your public crucifixion. A man steps forward from the crowd. You recognize him instantly. He is the town crier. His job is to be the villagers' talking newspaper. He announces births, deaths, market days, and royal proclamations. He is a man whose voice is trained to cut through the noise of a bustling crowd. He is holding a small bell in one hand and a rolled-up scroll in the other. He rings the bell. 3 sharp, clear notes that slice through the chaotic din of the mob, shrill, piercing, demanding attention. The crowd, conditioned by habit, begins to quiet down. The clanging of pots and pans subsides to a low, intermittent rattle. The shouting fades to a low, expectant murmur. All eyes turn to the crier. He unrolls his scroll with a dramatic flourish. He is a performer, and this is his stage. Just as the cart is yours, he takes a deep breath, puffing out his chest, and then he bellows, his voice booming across the small square. Wheezo, wheezo, wheezo. It's the traditional call for silence. A mangled remnant of Old Norman French that means hear ye. Let it be known to all present. He shouts, his voice dripping with theatrical solemnity, by order of the Right Reverend Bishop's Consistory Court. This woman, and here he turns and points a long, bony finger directly at you, once known as Mary Smith, wife of John Smith. He uses your name, your full name. He speaks it aloud for all to hear, linking it forever to this moment, this cart, this filth. The use of the word once is a subtle, cruel twist of the knife. It implies that you are no longer that person. That identity has been stripped from you. Is found guilty of lewd and incontinent carriage, bringing shame and scandal upon this parish. His voice projects the words like cannonballs. They land in the now silent square with devastating impact. This is no longer just gossip. This is not a whispered rumor from the well. This is an official, public proclamation. Your crime and your name are being formally, unlegally bound together in the public record, in the memory of every person present. Let her punishment serve as a warning to all. He concludes, his voice rising to a crescendo. Let her shame be a lesson in virtue. He finishes, rolls up his scroll with a snap, and steps back into the crowd. His job is done. He has given the mob their official script, their justification. He has transformed their base cruelty into a righteous, legally sanctioned act. This role of the crier is a fascinating intersection of oral and written culture. In a society where many, if not most, of the people are illiterate, the crier is the essential link between the world of official, written documents, like the court's verdict, and the everyday life of the village. He is the translator of power. Here is a strange but true fact about town criers. Their position was oft unlegally protected. To assault a crier or to interrupt him while he was making a proclamation was a serious offense, sometimes seen as an act of defiance against the very authority he represented, be it the local lord, the king, or, in this case, the church. He was a living symbol of the law, and his voice carried an official weight that was not to be challenged. The historical debate around this practice centers on its function. Was the crier's proclamation really about informing the public and deterring future crime? Or was it more about a ritual of naming and shaming? Some scholars argue that by publicly naming the offender and their crime, the community was performing a kind of exorcism. They were identifying the sin in their midst, isolating it, and casting it out. The proclamation was the verbal part of the ritual that you, in the cart, were physically embodying. As the crier's last words fade, the silence is broken. The mob, having received its official sanction, erupts with renewed vigor. The shouting is louder now, more confident. The insults are sharper, more specific, echoing the formal language of the crier's announcement. He has given them the words, and they hurl them back at you with relish. The beadle snaps the reins. The cart lurches forward again, and the procession continues its slow, agonizing journey towards its next stop, its next proclamation, its next station of your public humiliation. The car trundles on, turning from the main crossroads onto a smaller, more residential lane. This is, in some ways, worse. The main road was a place of relative anonymity, filled with people from all corners of the parish, some of whom you might not know well. This lane is the heart of your neighborhood. These are the houses you see every day, the people who are woven into the very fabric of your life, and their betrayal feels sharper, more personal. You force yourself to look up, to scan the faces in the crowd that presses in around you. It's a form of self-torture, but you can't help it. You need to see them. You need to know who is here, who is shouting, who is throwing filth. And you see them. You see Goody Miller and Goody Finch, the authors of your destruction, their faces flushed with the excitement of it all. They are at the front of the mob, leading the chorus of jeers. They are not just spectators, they are proud participants, seeing their whispered words brought to life in this brutal piece of theatre. You see the man who owns the field next to your husband's, a man you once helped when his cow was sick, sitting up all night with his wife, brewing herbal remedies. He is here, his face stern and disapproving. He is not shouting, but he is watching. His presence is a silent vote cast in favor of your condemnation. His stillness is as loud as any shout. Then, you see a face that makes your stomach drop even further. It's your brother. He is standing at the back of the crowd, half hidden in the shadow of an overhanging roof. He is not jeering. He is not throwing anything. He is just watching. His face a pale, agonized mask. His eyes meet yours for a fleeting, terrible second. In them, you see not hatred, but a profound and helpless shame. He is ashamed of you, ashamed to be connected to you by blood. He looks away quickly, turning his head, unable to bear the sight of you. His presence is not a comfort. It is the cruelest wound yet. He has come not to support you, but to witness your official erasure from his family, from his life. The mob is a complex ecosystem. It is not a monolithic entity. It is made up of individuals, each with their own motivations. There are the true believers, the genuinely outraged who see you as a threat to the moral order. There are the opportunists, those who have a personal grudge against you and are savoring this moment of revenge. There are the followers, those who are simply caught up in the energy of the crowd, too afraid to stand apart. And then there are the curious, the ones who have come for the spectacle, the same way they would come to watch a traveling juggler or a bear baiting. Here's a peculiar and telling detail about crowd dynamics from your era. In some court records detailing riots or public disturbances, the authorities would often single out apprentices and young people as the primary instigators. These were groups with less social standing, more free time, and perhaps a greater appetite for the kind of chaos these events produce. For a young apprentice, a public shaming was a thrilling and free form of entertainment. The historical debate about the character of pre-modern crowds is fascinating. Early historians often depicted them as mindless, irrational beasts, easily swayed and prone to senseless violence. More recent scholarship, however, has tried to see the logic of the mob. They argue that crowds like this one, while cruel, were often acting in a highly ritualized and purposeful way. They weren't just a random explosion of violence. They were enforcing a specific set of community values. Their actions had a script, a beginning, a middle, and an end. The pots and pans, the shells, the proclamations, it was all part of an established, if brutal, tradition. You scan the crowd again, desperately searching for a flicker of sympathy, a sign of dissent. You see nothing. No one steps forward to defend you. No one cries out for it to stop. To do so would be to risk drawing the mob's attention onto themselves, to be marked as a sympathizer, a fellow sinner. The price of compassion is too high. You see your husband's closest friend, a man who has shared countless mugs of ale with him by your hearth. He stands with his arms crossed, a deep frown on his face. Is it a frown of disapproval for you, or for this whole ugly spectacle? You can't tell. His ambiguity is its own form of torture. Every face you recognize is another small death. Every familiar gaze that is now filled with scorn or cold curiosity is another cut. The strangers in the crowd could be dismissed, but these are the people who made up your world, and they have all, in their own way, agreed that you no longer belong in it. The cart continues its slow, grinding progress and finally emerges from the narrow lane into a wide, open space. The market square, on any other market day. This place would be a cheerful chaos of stalls selling everything from live chickens to woolen cloth, filled with the sounds of haggling, laughter, and the cries of vendors. Today, the stalls are there, but a space has been cleared in the center. The normal business of the market has paused. Your punishment is the day's main event. This is the largest crowd yet. People from the surrounding farms and hamlets, who have come into town for the market, have joined the procession. They may not know you personally, but they know the cry. They know the ritual, and they are eager to watch. The square is the social and economic heart of the town, its public stage. To be shamed here is to be shamed before the entire world as you know it. The beadle brings the horse to a halt right next to the market cross. It's a tall, carved stone structure that serves as a monument, a meeting point, and a symbol of the town's Christian faith. It is the very center of the center, and next to it, you see another wooden structure, a heavy post set firmly in the ground. Tied to it, his back bare and already crisscrossed with angry red welts, is Thomas Fletcher. A man, the parish constable, is holding a short, thick, lashed whip. As your cart stops, he draws the whip back and brings it down across Thomas's shoulders. The sound is a sickening, whip crack. Thomas arches his back and cries out. A short, guttural sound of pure agony. The crowd lets out a collective, hungry roar. They are getting to shows for the price of one. Your eyes meet his for a moment across the square. His face is contorted in pain, sweat and tears carving clean paths through the grime on his cheeks. There is no recognition in his eyes, no shared understanding, just the blind, animal agony of a man being publicly beaten. His physical torment is the counterpoint to your social one. He is being punished in the flesh, you in the spirit. Both of you are being broken, publicly and systematically, for the satisfaction of the crowd. The market cross was the traditional site for these kinds of punishments for a reason. Its location ensured the maximum possible audience, but it also had a powerful symbolic resonance. By carrying out the punishment in the shadow of the cross, the authorities were framing the act not as mere brutality, but as a form of righteous, Christian justice. The pain and humiliation were presented as a necessary penance, a cleansing of the community's sins at its most sacred public landmark. Here is a strange and often misunderstood fact about public punishments like whipping. While they were certainly brutal, they were not always intended to be permanently maiming. The number of lashes was often strictly prescribed by the court. 10, 20, 39, a number with biblical significance. A skilled constable could deliver a punishment that was intensely painful and drew blood, but which would not cripple the man for life. The goal was a short, terrifying spectacle, not necessarily a long-term injury. The scars, however, would last a lifetime, a permanent reminder of his transgression. The debate among historians about the audience experience of these events is complex. Did everyone in the crowd feel the same righteous anger? Almost certainly not. The records are full of accounts of public punishments where the crowd's mood was unpredictable. Sometimes they would cheer the authorities on. Other times, if they felt the punishment was unjust or the victim was someone they liked, they might turn on the constable, throwing stones at him instead of the prisoner, or even attempting a rescue. The crowd was not a passive recipient of the spectacle. It was an active and sometimes fickle participant whose mood could make all the difference. But there is no sympathy for you or for Thomas today. The town crier steps forward again, next to the market cross. He rings his bell. Silencing the crowd once more, he reads his proclamation again, his voice even louder this time. Projecting to the edges of the packed square, he bellows your name, and then Thomas's. He links you together in public infamy. As he finishes, the constable delivers another lash, perfectly timed to punctuate the end of the announcement. Thomas screams again. The crowd roars its approval. You are forced to watch. The beadle has positioned the cart so you have a clear view. This is part of the design. You must witness his pain, and he, in his agony, must be aware of your presence, your shared disgrace. You are two halves of a single, shameful whole, a living tableau of sin and its consequences, put on display for the moral education and the grim entertainment of your neighbors. You sit in the cart, a prisoner in a cage of filth and shame, forced to watch the brutal rhythm of the whipping. Each crack of the lash makes you flinch. Each of Thomas' cries of pain echoes in your own hollowed-out soul. The crowd is a beast, roaring with approval at every blow, its hunger for suffering seemingly insatiable. You feel a profound and dizzying sense of despair. There is no kindness left in the world. There is only this. You lower your gaze, unable to watch any longer, and stare at your own hands, limp in your lap. They are caked with mud and grime, the nails broken. They don't look like your hands. You feel a tear, hot and sharp. Trace a clean path through the filth on your cheek. It is the first one you have shed since this nightmare began. A single, silent tear of utter hopelessness. And then, you see it. It's a small thing, so small you are not even sure if you saw it at all. A woman is standing near the edge of the crowd, not far from your coat. She is older, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, her back stooped from a lifetime of hard work. You recognize her as Elspeth, a widow who lives alone in a small cottage at the very edge of the parish. She is a quiet woman, someone who keeps to herself, known for her skill with herbs and remedies. Some people whisper that she's a little strange, perhaps even a bit of a witch, but she is mostly just ignored. She is not shouting, she is not jeering, she is just watching, her expression still and unreadable. But as your tear falls, her eyes meet yours, and in that fleeting moment, you see something. It is not pity. Pity is a luxury you cannot afford. It is a look from above, a condescension. This is something else. It is a flicker of what? Recognition, understanding. It is a look that seems to see past the filth and the shorn hair, past the spectacle, and sees the person huddled inside. It is a look that says, simply, I see you. Then, she does something extraordinary. She performs the smallest, most subtle act of defiance imaginable. She gives a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. It is not a nod of approval. It is a nod of acknowledgement. A human gesture in a sea of inhumanity. And then, as quickly as it appeared, the moment is gone. She pulls her shawl tighter around her shoulders and turns, melting back into the anonymous mass of the crowd, disappearing from view. Did it even happen? Was it just a trick of your desperate, overwrought mind? A hallucination conjured from a deep need for a single drop of compassion in this desert of cruelty? You don't know, but the image of her face, the memory of that flicker in her eyes, remains. It is a tiny, fragile seed of something other than despair. It doesn't change anything. The cart is still here. The mob is still roaring. But the suffocating totality of your isolation has been punctured. Just for a second, you are not entirely alone. One person saw you. This is the hidden transcript of history, the moments that are rarely written down. The official records document the punishments, the proclamations, the power of the authorities, but they seldom capture these quiet, fleeting moments of dissent or sympathy. Were there always people in the crowd who felt for the victim? Almost certainly. People who disapproved of the cruelty, who knew the accusation was based on a petty grudge, who felt a pang of there but for the grace of God go I. Historians sometimes find hints of this in unexpected places. In the slight dip in charitable donations to the church in the week after a particularly brutal punishment, in a diary entry that expresses private disgust, or in court records of people who were themselves punished for speaking against the authorities or showing undue sympathy for a condemned sinner. These acts of compassion were risky and therefore rare, but they happened. The concept of a moral economy is something historians often discuss. It's the idea that communities have their own unwritten, collective sense of what is fair and just. Sometimes, the official punishment aligns with this sense of justice, but other times, it doesn't. If the crowd felt a punishment was excessive, or the victim was undeserving, they could express their disapproval in subtle ways, by remaining silent when they were expected to jeer, or by quietly helping the victim's family after the fact. Elspeth's nod was not a rebellion. It was not a protest. It was a tiny, silent, and deeply human act. It changes nothing about your situation. You are still trapped, still condemned, but it is a spark in the darkness, a reminder that even in the midst of the most monstrous collective behavior, the individual capacity for a different kind of seeing, a different kind of feeling, can still exist, even if it only flickers for a brief, almost invisible moment. The whipping is over. The crier has fallen silent. The cart lurches forward once more, beginning the next leg of its journey, and you carry the memory of that nod with you, a secret, weightless treasure in the midst of your ruin. The car trundles out of the market square, leaving the grim spectacle of the whipping post behind. The crowd thins a little now. Some people, their thirst for the day's drama satisfied, drift back to their market stalls or head towards the tavern. But a large, core group of tormentors remains, a persistent, buzzing swarm that follows you as the procession turns, and you realize with a fresh wave of dread where you are going. The beadle is steering the horse down the lane that leads back to your own home. This is the final, most refined cruelty of the ritual. The parade is not a one-way journey into exile. It is a circle. You must be paraded past the scene of your former life one last time. You must face the epicenter of the world you have lost, dragging your shame and filth with you. As the cart turns onto your lane, the noise of the mob seems to change. It becomes more personal, more specific. These are your immediate neighbors now, the people who have lived beside you, who have borrowed a cup of flour, who have watched your garden grow. Their insults are not the generic shouts of the town square. They are sharper, more intimate, laced with a venom that can only come from familiarity. She always thought she was too good for the likes of us, shouts a woman whose child you once nursed through a fever. Look at the fine lady now. Sneers a man who you know for a fact is watering down the ale he sells. His own small sins are forgotten, washed away in the righteous tide of condemning yours. The cart slows as it approaches your small, timber-framed house. It looks so achingly normal. The washed-end dub walls, the thatched roof, the small garden plot where your cabbages are just beginning to heart. It is an empty stage set, a life that has been hollowed out. The procession stops directly in front of your door. This is the climax of the performance. You, the shamed woman, return to the threshold you have disgraced. The mob presses in, a suffocating semicircle, trapping you between their hateful faces and the silent accusation of your own front door. Here, in front of your home, the town crier does not make a proclamation. That part of the ritual is over. This moment is for the community itself. It is their chance to have a final say, to reclaim the space you have supposedly defiled. A strange thing begins to happen. People start to step forward, one by one, and place small, symbolic objects on your doorstep. Goody Finch, your next-door neighbor, steps up and lays a broken piece of pottery on the threshold, a symbol of a broken home. The blacksmith places a handful of cold ashes, a sign of a hearth that has been extinguished. Someone else leaves a bundle of stinging nettles, a representation of your sharpened sinful nature. They are creating a shrine to your shame, a folk altar of condemnation, right on the boundary between your private life and the public world. It is a powerful, symbolic act of reclaiming the neighborhood. They are not just shaming you, they are ritually cleansing the space you occupy. This practice, leaving symbolic objects or creating effigies of shame, is a recurring theme in the history of folk justice. It's a form of non-verbal communication, a way for an illiterate community to express complex ideas about social transgression. A broken pot is more than just a piece of trash. It's a sentence, a verdict, a story that everyone in the village can read and understand. Historians often debate the line between these highly ritualized folk punishments and outright riots. Where does the controlled, symbolic expression of community anger end and chaotic, violent mob rule begin? The line is incredibly thin. Events like this could easily spiral out of control. A jeering crowd could become a destructive one, not just shaming the person but destroying their property, breaking their windows, tearing down their fences, even, in rare and extreme cases, pulling down their house. The beadle is here not just to administer your punishment, but to keep the mob's fury channeled within the accepted, ritualistic bounds. You watch this desecration of your home, a fresh wave of nausea washing over you. This is more than a punishment, it is an erasure. They are rewriting the meaning of your home, transforming it from a place of shelter into a monument of your sin. Your brother is not here. Your husband is not here. No one is here for you. The only person you can see who isn't participating is the old widow, Elspeth. She is standing at the very back of the crowd, just a glimpse of her grey shawl. She is not watching you anymore. She is looking at the ground, a silent, solitary dissenter in a world gone mad with righteous cruelty. Her quiet refusal to participate is a form of defiance, so subtle that no one else even notices. But you do, and it is the only thing that is keeping you from completely shattering. The ritual at your doorstep is finished. The small, ugly altar of your shame is complete. The crowd seems to sigh, a collective release of tension. The climax of the drama is over. The beadle, looking bored and eager to be done with the whole affair, gives the reins a sharp crack. The cart lurches forward for the last time. The procession leaves your lane behind and moves towards the edge of the village. The mood of the crowd has shifted again. The fever-pitch anger has subsided, replaced by a kind of weary, triumphant satisfaction. Their work is almost done. The jeers are less frequent now. The clanging of pots and pans more sporadic. A few children, their attention spans exhausted, have started a game of tag. Their laughter is a surreal counterpoint to the grim reality of your journey. You are being taken down the path that leads out of the parish, the road that connects your small world to the larger one. It's a path you have walked before, perhaps to visit a cousin in the next village or to attend a larger fair. Today, it is a path of no return. The car trembles over the small, rickety wooden bridge that crosses the stream, marking the official boundary of your parish. On the other side of the stream, the beadle brings the horse to a final stop. This is it, the end of the line. He gets down from his seat, walks to the back of the cart, and pulls out the heavy wooden peg. The backboard drops with a loud, clattering thud. He doesn't offer you a hand. He doesn't speak a word. He just jerks his head, a silent, impatient command. Get out. You slide, stumbling, out of the back of the cart, your bare feet landing on the damp, unfamiliar grass of the roadside. You are no longer in your own village. You are an outsider. The crowd gathers on their side of the stream, watching you. They do not cross the bridge. They are a wall of silent observers, ensuring you understand the finality of this act. This is the symbolic heart of the punishment, exile. You have been literally and physically expelled from the social body of the community. In a world where your entire identity, your survival, is tied to your place within that community, this is a form of social death. You are being made into a vagrant, a wanderer, one of the most feared and despised figures in your society. Being a stranger, a person with no fixed home or master, was a deeply precarious and legally fraught position in your time. Vagrancy laws were harsh. A person found wandering without a clear purpose or means of support could be whipped, branded, or even forced into servitude, by dumping you at the parish boundary. The authorities are not just shaming you, they are pushing you into a dangerous and illegal status. Here's a bizarre legal wrinkle from your era. Parishes were, in a sense, responsible for their own poor. If you were born in a village, and you fell on hard times, the parish had a legal obligation to support you through the poor relief system. This created a powerful incentive for parishes to get rid of anyone who might become a financial burden. Punishments like this, which resulted in exile, were a convenient way to solve a moral problem and a potential financial one at the same time. You are no longer their problem. The historical debate here is about the ultimate goal. Was this punishment meant to be a temporary shock, a harsh lesson from which you were eventually expected to recover and, perhaps, be allowed to return, or was it intended as a permanent and final expulsion? The records show examples of both. Some people, after a period of penance and exile, did manage to reintegrate into their communities, but for many, especially women whose honor was the basis of their social standing, the damage was irreparable. The carting was a one-way ticket to a life on the margins. The beadle climbs back onto his seat, turns the horse and cart around, and begins to trundle back towards the village. His job completed, the crowd watches him go, and then they begin to disperse in twos and threes. Their voices low and conversational now. They're talking about the price of wool, the health of their livestock, the evening meal. The spectacle is over. They are returning to their normal lives, the lives from which you have just been violently ejected. Soon, you are left completely alone, standing on the wrong side of the stream, in your filthy shift, with your shorn hair and your broken life. The only sound is the gentle gurgle of the water in the distant, fading sounds of the village you once called home. You stand by the side of the road, trembling in the cool afternoon air. The last of the villagers has disappeared over the rise. The couch is gone. The noise is gone. And the silence that descends is the most terrifying thing you have ever experienced. It is not a peaceful silence. It is a hollow, ringing void, the sound of a world that has had all the meaning and familiarity sucked out of it. For a long time, you don't move. You just listen. You can hear the buzz of a bee in the clover by the roadside. You can hear the rustle of the wind in the leaves of the oak tree that looms over the bridge. You can hear the gentle, ceaseless murmur of the stream as it flows under the wooden planks. These are the normal, gentle sounds of the countryside. The sounds that should be comforting, but they are not. They are alien. They are the sounds of a world that is continuing on without you. A world in which you no longer have a place. The silence is the starkest contrast to the overwhelming chaos of the past few hours. The jeers, the clanging pots, the shouts of the choir. That was a storm, a hurricane of human hatred, and you were at its center. Now, the storm has passed, leaving behind this devastating, unnatural calm. The adrenaline that has kept you upright, that has numbed you to the worst of the pain, begins to drain away, and in its place comes a bone-deep exhaustion unlike anything you have ever known. You look down at yourself, at the thin, torn shift, stiff with mud and filth, at your bare feet, scratched and bruised, at your hands, raw and dirty. This is what is left of you, a ruined thing, dumped by the side of a road. The shame, which had been a hot, public performance, now cools and hardens into something else. A cold, heavy stone of private despair. The sun is beginning to sink towards the horizon, casting long, golden fingers of light across the fields. The beauty of it is a fresh cruelty. The world has not ended. The sun will still set, and it will rise again tomorrow. It is only your world that has been utterly and completely destroyed. This experience of sudden, profound silence after a traumatic event is a well-documented psychological phenomenon. It's the moment the mind struggles to process the transition from extreme sensory overload to utter quiet. It's in this quiet that the full weight of what has happened often begins to sink in. During the chaos, survival is the only instinct. In the silence, The contemplation of the wreckage begins. A strange and poignant detail from historical accounts of outcasts and exiles is their relationship with the natural world. For someone cast out from human society, the landscape itself, the trees, the animals, the stars, could become their only companions. Some accounts describe a deep sense of connection to the non-human world, as if nature was the only society that would not judge or reject them. But for you, right now, nature is not a comfort. It is a terrifyingly indifferent witness to your desolation. The historical debate about the afterlife of the punished is a difficult one, as the records often fall silent. Once a person was counted and exiled, they often disappear from the official documents of their home parish. What happened to them? Did they manage to find a new life in a different town, where no one knew their past? Did they fall into a life of begging and vagrancy? Did they simply perish from exposure or starvation? For most, we will never know. Their stories end where yours feels like it has, in the deafening silence at the edge of the world they knew. You take a tentative step, then another. Your legs feel weak, unsteady. You have no destination, no plan. To go forward is to walk into an unknown, hostile world where you are a stranger with no name and no protection. To go back, you look over your shoulder, across the bridge, down the empty road that leads to the village. Back there is everything you have ever known. Every memory, every connection, and it is close to you forever. A bird sings a cheerful, liquid song from a branch overhead. It is a sound of such pure, uncomplicated innocence that it feels like a physical blow. You wrap your arms around your own waist, holding yourself together. As the silence stretches on, vast and empty and utterly complete, the sun touches the horizon, painting the sky in brutal, beautiful shades of orange and pink. The air grows colder, and a damp chill rises from the stream. You cannot stay here. To spend the night in the open is dangerous. There are wolves, both animal and human. Survival, a base and stubborn instinct you thought had been beaten out of you, begins to flicker. You need shelter, you need warmth, and there is only one place your feet know how to go. Slowly, hesitantly, you turn back. You put one foot on the wooden planks of the bridge. The wood is cool and damp beneath your bare sole. You take another step. You are crossing the boundary. You are breaking the unspoken rule of your exile. With every step, the mile, irrational hope begins to beat in your chest. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe it was a terrible dream. Maybe if you can just get home, you can wash yourself clean, lie down in your own bed, and wake up to find that none of this ever happened. You walk down the now empty lane leading back into the village. It is twilight, the strange, liminal time between day and night. The windows of the houses are beginning to glow with the warm, flickering light of candles and hearth fires. You can hear the murmur of voices from within, the cry of a baby, the smell of wood smoke and evening meals, the ordinary, comforting sounds of a life that is no longer yours. People see you. A man carrying a bucket of water stops and stares, his mouth agape. A group of children playing in the dirt fall silent, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. You are a ghost, a spectre of the days of ants, return to haunt them. No one speaks to you. They just watch as you make your slow, painful way through the streets that were once yours. You turn onto your own lane. The familiar path feels a mile long, and then you see it, your house. The small objects, the broken pot, the ashes, the nettles, are still on the doorstep. A grim and silent testament. The door is closed. The wooden shutters on the window are barred. There is no light within. But maybe he is there, your husband. Maybe, now that the public spectacle is over, he will show you some small mercy. Maybe he will let you in. The hope is a painful, foolish thing, but you cling to it. It is all you have left. You reach the door. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely make a fist. You knock. The sound is small and weak. a pathetic tapping against the heavy oak. You wait. Nothing. You knock again. Louder this time, putting all of your remaining strength into it. John, you call out, your voice raw. Broken cub, please. You press your ear against the cold wood of the door. You can hear something. A sound from within. A soft shuffling. Here's and there, here's and there. In the darkness, listening to you. John, please let me in. You whisper, tears now streaming freely down your face. Washing clean paths through the grime. I have nowhere to go. Silence. The shuffling has stopped. He is holding his breath, waiting for you to leave. And in that silence, you finally understand. The public punishment was one thing. This is another. This is the private verdict, delivered in the dark, through a barred door. The community has cast you out, and so has he. He has made his choice. He has chosen his reputation, his good name, his place in the village, over you. The door will not open. Not tonight. Not ever. The legal concept of sea overture, which was meant to protect you, has its most brutal application here. As a family covert, you have no legal claim to the house. It is his. You are not a co-owner. You are, in the eyes of the law, a resident in his property, and he has the right to deny you entry. The home you built together, the hearth you tended, the bed you shared, none of it is yours. A bizarre and heartbreaking detail found in some church court records are the petitions from women in exactly your situation. A woman, cast out by her husband, might appeal to the very same court that condemned her, begging them to order her husband to take her back. Sometimes, if the husband's actions were seen as excessively cruel, or if he was failing in his Christian duty to provide for his wife, however shamed, the court might intervene. But it was a long shot, a desperate plea to a system that had already broken you. Historians are divided on the internal emotional world of men like your husband. Was his action born of a genuine belief in your guilt and a sense of personal betrayal? Was it a cold, calculated decision based on social pressure and the fear of being ostracized himself for harboring a sinful woman? Or was it something more complex? A mixture of anger, shame, and a terrible, helpless grief that could only express itself as cold rejection. We can only see his actions, not his heart. And his action is this closed door. The last, foolish ember of hope inside you dies, turning to cold ash. You slide down the rough wood of the door, slumping onto the doorstep amongst the nettles and the broken pottery. You have come full circle, only to find yourself more lost and alone than ever before. You are homeless, sitting on the threshold of a home that is no longer yours, with a locked door at your back and a world of hostile strangers before you. You don't know how long you sit there, huddled on the cold doorstep, minutes or hours. The passage of time is a blur. The last of the twilight fades, and the village has plunged into a deep, rural darkness, broken only by the faint, distant twinkle of a few stars in the gaps between the clouds. The door behind you remains a solid, unmoving wall of rejection. Eventually, a chilling realization settles in. To stay here is to invite more trouble. To be found here in the morning, a vagrant sleeping on a respectable man's doorstep, could lead to the stocks, or another whipping. Your presence is an embarrassment, and the village will not tolerate it. With a deep, shuddering sigh, you push yourself to your feet. Your limbs are stiff, your body a constellation of aches and bruises. Every movement is an effort. You turn away from the closed door and begin to walk, with no destination in mind. You are simply moving, putting one foot in front of the other, because to stay still is to surrender completely. You drift through the sleeping village like a phantom. The lanes are empty, the house is dark and silent. This is the same village you walked through this morning, but it is a completely different place. By day, it was a stage for your humiliation. By night, it is a graveyard of your former life. Every familiar shape and shadow is a ghost. There is the dark silhouette of the church tower, where you were condemned. There is the black, gaping space of the market square, where you were displayed, there is the low stone wall of the well, where the whispers began. You are a stranger in your own town. The people sleeping in these houses, behind these barred doors, were once your community. Now, you are invisible to them, or rather, you are hypervisible as a symbol of shame, but invisible as a person. If one of them were to look out their window and see you, they would not see Mary, their neighbor. They would see the carted woman, a walking cautionary tale, a piece of public property. This transition from a known member of the community to a social ghost is one of the most profound and psychologically devastating aspects of punishments like this. You lose not just your home and your family, but your very identity. Your name no longer refers to you, the person, with your unique history and personality. It now refers to your crime, your public shame. You find yourself drawn, against your better judgment, towards the edge of the village, to the small, isolated cottage where the old widow Elspeth lives. You don't know why. You have no reason to believe she would help you. To offer aid to an outcast like you would be to risk her own precarious position in the village. But the memory of that small, human node in the market square is a tiny, flickering light in the overwhelming darkness. As you approach her cottage, a low growl comes from the shadows. A dog, small and scruffy, emerges, barring your path, its teeth bared. It is Elspeth's dog, a creature as much of an outsider as she is. But before you can retreat, a voice comes from the darkened doorway of the cottage. Push, Pip. The door creaks open a few inches, revealing a sliver of warm, yellow light. Elspeth stands there, holding a small tallow lamp, her wrinkled face etched with concern. She looks at you, huddled in the darkness, filthy and shivering. She doesn't look shocked or disgusted, she just looks tired, as if she has seen the story play out many times before. She says nothing for a long moment. Then, she opens the door wider. "Come in," she says, her voice a low, rough whisper, "before you catch your death." It is a simple invitation, but it is the most profound act of kindness you have ever known. It is a staggering risk for her to take. A huge, world-altering risk. This is a point that historians who study popular culture and social norms often emphasize. While the official community response might be one of universal condemnation, there often existed a parallel, hidden world of quiet support and subversion. Neighbors might secretly leave food for a shunned family. A woman like Elspeth, already living on the margins of society, might have less to lose by defying the social order and therefore be more willing to offer help. These small, clandestine acts of mercy were the threads that held the true fabric of the community together, even when its public face was one of brutal conformity. The debate remains, were people like Elspeth acting out of pure Christian charity, a sense of moral duty that overrode social pressure, or was it a more pragmatic form of social insurance? I'll help you today, because tomorrow it might be me who needs help. Perhaps it was a mixture of both. A recognition of shared humanity in a world that was often brutally inhuman. You hesitate for only a second, then you stumble across her threshold, out of the cold, hostile darkness and into the small, lamp-lit room. The room smells of dried herbs, wood smoke, and beeswax. It is the smell of sanctuary. Elspeth closes the door behind you, shutting out the village, shutting out the night. She doesn't ask what happened. She doesn't ask if you are guilty. She just sees a person in need. She points to a small bucket of water by the hearth. "Wash," she says, her voice gentle but firm. "There is stew on the fire." You wash your face and hands in the bucket of cool water. The simple act feels like a resurrection, as the layers of caked-on mud and filth dissolve. You see your own skin again, pale and scratched, but recognizably yours. Elspeth hands you a piece of rough, homespun cloth to dry yourself, her movements efficient and devoid of any sentimentality. She is not offering pity. She is offering practical, life-sustaining aid. She ladles a thick, fragrant vegetables to into a wooden bowl and hands it to you with a chunk of dark, heavy bread. You sit on a low stool by her small, warm house, and you eat. You had forgotten what it felt like to be hungry. The warmth of the stew spreads through your body, a slow, creeping tide that pushes back against the deep, internal chill that has consumed you all day. You eat slowly, methodically, each spoonful a small victory against the despair that has threatened to swallow you whole. Elspeth moves about the small, one-room cottage, her silence a comfortable blanket. She gives you a long, simple linen shift, clean and smelling faintly of lavender from the chest where it was stored. It is old and patched in several places, but it is a garment of dignity, a world away from the torn, befouled shift you are wearing. When you are finished eating, she gestures for you to change, turning her back to give you a sliver of privacy. You pull off the wretched, filthy garment, the uniform of your shame, and let it fall to the floor in a heap. Putting on the clean shift feels like shedding a skin. It is an act of reclaiming some small part of yourself. Elspeth takes the dirty shift, and without a word, she throws it into the heart of the fire. You watch as the flames lick at the stained fabric, curling the edges, turning it black. It smokes and desmolders, and then it catches, burning with a sudden, bright flare. The physical evidence of your public humiliation is being consumed, turned to smoke and dash into memory. The courting, Elspeth says, her back still to you as she pokes the fire. It is the first time either of you has named the event. It is an old cruelty, a way for the village to vomit up its own bad humors. Her language is stark, medical. She sees it not as justice, but as a sickness. This form of public, ritual humiliation did not last forever. As the centuries wore on, ideas about justice, punishment, and the role of the state began to change. The old world of folk justice and church-led moral policing slowly gave way to a more centralized, state-controlled legal system. Public spectacles of shame like the carting began to be seen not as righteous expressions of community will, but as chaotic, undignified, and slightly barbaric riots. The authorities wanted order, not the messy, unpredictable passion of the mob. By the time the 18th and 19th centuries arrived, punishments were moving behind closed doors. The prison, the asylum, the workhouse, these became the new tools of social control. Shame was still a key component, but it was a more private, institutionalized shame, not a public, theatrical one. The idea of parading a half-dressed woman through the streets began to seem not just cruel, but inefficient, backward, an embarrassment to a society that saw itself as increasingly civilized. Here's a final, curious historical detail. One of the last recorded instances of a traditional carting in England took place in the early 1800s. The crowd was reportedly disorderly. The event was condemned in the London newspapers as a relic of a barbarous age, and the local magistrates were heavily criticized for allowing it to happen. The world had changed. The slow, grinding parade of public shame had finally run out of road. Historians still debate the reasons for this decline. Was it a genuine growth in humanitarian sentiment, a newfound empathy for the victim? Was it the rise of the modern state, which could not tolerate the messy, unofficial justice of the crowd? Or was it simply that society had found new, more subtle, and perhaps more effective ways to enforce its norms and punish its outsiders? The cart disappeared, but the shaming, perhaps, just took on different forms. Elspeth turns from the fire. In the flickering light, her wrinkled face is a mask of ancient wisdom. They have cursed you out, she says, her voice slow and steady, but that does not mean you are lost. It only means you must find a new path. She gestures to a small pile of straw and blankets in the corner of the room, a humble but infinitely precious offer of a place to sleep. Rest now, she says. The world is different in the morning. You lie down in the small, warm space she has made for you. You can hear the soft crackle of the fire and the gentle, rhythmic sound of Elspeth grinding herbs with a mortar and pestle. You are safe. For tonight, at least, you are safe as you close your eyes. The terrifying images of the day, the jeering faces, the flying chills, the closed door begin to recede, replaced by the simple, profound reality of this single, unexpected act of grace. The shame may never fade completely, but it is no longer the only thing in the world. There is also this quiet, stubborn, human kindness, and as you drift into an exhausted, dreamless sleep, it feels, for the first time, like enough. And so, the story settles into quiet. The warmth of Elspeth's small hearth seems to seep out from the tale itself, a gentle, glowing ember in the cool darkness of your room. You can feel the weight of that day begin to lift, not just from her shoulders, but from yours. It dissolves into the stillness, becoming just a faint echo, a whisper in a dream you are already beginning to forget. The sharp edges of the memory soften, blurring into the comfortable darkness behind your eyes. The sounds of the village, the shouts, the clanging, they all fade away, replaced by the soft, rhythmic crackle of a distant, peaceful fire. A sound that guides you gently, effortlessly, further down the path towards a deep and truly restful sleep. You can feel a sense of release, a letting go, as if a heavy tug has been lifted from you, leaving you feeling light, then calm, and perfectly at ease. There is nothing left to see, nothing left to hear, only the gentle, rising and falling of your own quiet breath, each one a soft wave, carrying you further and further away, to a place of perfect stillness and peace. The final page is turned. If your eyelids are still not heavy, another story might be the final lullaby you need. Sleep sweetly. Good night.